Empires do not fall in a single day, they decay from within long before the final blow. From the slow decline of the Roman Empire to the sudden collapse of the Soviet Union, history reveals a pattern. Power expands, wealth grows, and confidence turns into complacency. Economic strain, political corruption, and widening inequality weaken the core. Military overreach drains resources, while internal divisions fracture unity. In Rome, rising costs and instability eroded authority over centuries. In the Soviet Union, economic stagnation and reform pressures unraveled a superpower in just years. Empires often fall not only because of enemies at their gates, but because of fragile systems within. The lesson is clear. Strength without stability is temporary, and no empire is immune to the weight of its own contradictions. What if the greatest chapters of human history were never written down? Long before modern nations, ancient civilizations rose with astonishing skill, leaving behind monuments that still defy explanation. In ancient Egypt, massive pyramids were aligned with remarkable precision to the stars. In Mesopotamia, the first cities developed writing, law, and organized government. The Indus Valley civilization built carefully planned cities with advanced drainage systems over 4,000 years ago. And in Maya civilization society, astronomers charted the skies with striking accuracy. Yet many of their records vanished through war, natural disaster, and time itself. What survives are fragments, ruins, inscriptions, and artifacts, silent witnesses to human ambition and ingenuity. The mystery is not that these civilizations disappeared, but how much of their knowledge was lost with them. What happens when the world's greatest powers refuse to step back? When superpowers collide, history changes in an instant. In 1914, Europe's rival empires plunged into World War I, shattering centuries-old monarchies. In 1941, Nazi Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union turned the Eastern Front into the deadliest theater of World War II, and after 1945, the United States and the Soviet Union faced off in the Cold War, a nuclear standoff that divided the world for decades. Each clash pushed empires to the brink. In the struggle for dominance, even the strongest powers discovered their limits, and the world was never the same. What if the streets of America's oldest cities could speak? Beneath modern skylines and quiet brick alleys lie stories that shaped a nation. In Boston, protests over tea in 1773 ignited a revolution. In Philadelphia, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were debated and signed. New Orleans grew rich on Mississippi River trade, blending French, Spanish, African, and American cultures into a unique identity. And in San Francisco, the 1849 gold rush transformed a small settlement into a booming gateway to the Pacific. These cities are more than landmarks, they are living archives of ambition, conflict, resilience, and the unfinished story of America. What if a handful of individuals could shape the destiny of a nation? American history was defined by people whose choices changed the course of the world. George Washington led a fragile revolution and became the first president, setting the foundation for a new republic. Abraham Lincoln preserved the Union during the Civil War and ended slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation. Frederick Douglass, once enslaved, became a powerful voice for freedom and equality. Susan B. Anthony fought tirelessly for women's right to vote, and Martin Luther King Jr. led a nonviolent movement that transformed civil rights. In the 20th century, their courage, vision, and sacrifice did not just shape America's past, they continued to define its future.
And live out the true meaning of its creed.
What if one of the most famous acts of rebellion in history was not just about tea but about power? In December 1773, tensions between American colonists and the British Crown reached a breaking point. After Parliament passed the Tea Act, granting the British East India Company a monopoly and maintaining a tax colonists believed was unjust, protests erupted in Boston. On the night of December 16th, members of the Sons of Liberty, some disguised as Mohawk Indians, boarded 3 ships in Boston Harbor and dumped 342 chests of tea into the water. No one was killed, and no other property was damaged. The act was deliberate and symbolic, a direct challenge to taxation without representation. Britain responded with harsh penalties known as the Course of Acts, pushing the colonies closer to revolution and setting the stage for the American War of Independence. What if the so-called Dark Ages were not dark at all? After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, Europe entered a period of political fragmentation, economic decline, and frequent invasions. Cities shrank, long-distance trade weakened, and centralized authority collapsed. But this era, roughly from the 5th to the 10th century, was not a time of total ignorance. Monasteries carefully preserved classical knowledge, copying ancient texts by hand. New kingdoms emerge, including the Franks under Charlemagne, who was crowned emperor in 800, attempting to revive learning and governance. Across Europe, agriculture improved with new tools and techniques, laying foundations for growth. The term Dark Ages reflects limited written records, not a world without progress. From instability and transformation, medieval Europe slowly took shape. What if the countries we call home are not ancient at all but surprisingly modern creations? For centuries, people lived under empires, kingdoms, and city-states, bound by loyalty to rulers rather than shared national identity. The idea of the nation-state where borders, language, and identity alike began to take shape after the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, which established the principle of sovereign states. In the 18th and 19th centuries, revolutions in America and France declared that power belonged to the people, not monarchs. Nationalism spread across Europe, unifying Italy and Germany, while old empires slowly fractured. After two world wars, new borders redder the map once again. Modern countries were not born overnight, they were forged through war, revolution, diplomacy, and the powerful idea that a nation should govern itself. What if a single line on a map could rewrite the fate of nations? Throughout history, border wars have reshaped empires and identities. In 1846, the Mexican-American War redrew North America, as the United States gained vast western territories. In 1962, a brief but bitter conflict between China and India hardened one of the world's longest disputed frontiers. And after World War I, the shifting borders, imposed by the Treaty of Versailles, fueled tensions that would ignite an even deadlier global war. From contested rivers to mountain passes, these struggles were never just about land, they were about power, security, and survival. In the end, the lines drawn in conflict continue to define our world today.